Joining me now is Fred Kempe, President and CEO of the Atlantic Council and a CNBC contributor. He was just in Ukraine. Fred, welcome. The tone has certainly shifted between Zelensky and Trump. What do you expect to come of this? And Trump has shifted before, though, between favoring Putin's perspective and Zelensky's.
So thank you, John. I was on this show February 28th in that terrible Oval Office meeting where J.D. Vance and President Trump said to Zelensky he had no cards. Their critical minerals deal fell apart. He left town, and people were wondering what would happen to the relationship. Now, they're at a uniquely good position in the Trump administration at the relationship. And I think what Zelensky's going to want to come away with is three things. First of all, they're working on a drone deal, 5-year, $50 billion. It could be as large as that, where the Ukrainians build 10 million drones for themselves, but then scale and do 10 million for the U.S. as well. 7 different types of drones, air, sea, land. There's also a mega deal being worked on. That's probably further down the line, $90 billion of arms that would be bought through loans that would come from the leveraging of the frozen assets, $300 billion of frozen assets, mostly in European hands. And then the other one that's quite important to him is coming away with a feeling that you're going to have more work on sanctions. The Senate sanctions bill is ready to go. I'm not sure this will come up in their talks. There's talk that the Senate would put it forward as early as next week for secondary sanctions on Russia, which would really hurt Russia economically. Lindsey Graham has drafted that. There are more than 80 co-sponsors in the Senate. But the real question is Trump willing to not just give Putin carrots when he meets him in Budapest, when Secretary of State Rubio will go to Russia next week to prepare those talks, but he hasn't been willing to use the sticks that he's willing to use on many others that he negotiates with. So we're waiting to see whether he's willing to apply sticks to Putin as well as carrots.
Tell me if I understand the framing here. When I think about the weapons part of these conversations between Trump and Zelensky, drones have, it seems to me, been really the lifeblood of Ukraine's strategy to maintain on the battlefield itself kind of a force multiplier for a country that's otherwise potentially outmanned. And then the longer range missiles, Tomahawks, I believe, that they want to get their hands on, that potentially brings a different level of threat within Russia to counterbalance the attacks that Russia has been doing inside Ukraine in places like Kyiv. Is that right? And then if the U.S. supplies those, it's supplying some of those cards that President Trump said Zelensky didn't have.
Yeah, John, you're absolutely right. And that's what I left out of my first answer, is Zelensky would like to see the green light for the Tomahawk missiles, 1,000-mile range. He could hit the drone factories that Russia has deep in their own territory. A drone can hit deep in Russian territory, but not with the same sort of force of a Tomahawk missile. Russian officials have said, well, that would be escalatory to the point of perhaps even nuclear war. So there's a real tense moment about the Tomahawk missiles. On the ground in Ukraine, where I was there, the situation is almost more a race over technology than a race over territory, though they're related to each other. The front line is essentially 15, 20 kilometers, 10 miles wide, and it's a killing zone. Anything that goes into that front line will get killed by weaponized drones. There are also interceptor drones, but it's just not just human beings, but tanks can't go in that area. So it's really hard to move that front line. And that's where the long-range missiles come in. Zelensky has argued to Trump, I need to be able to mirror what Russia is able to do to me. Russia can hit deep into Ukraine, take out our electrical grids, hit civilians. Ukrainians don't go after civilians, but they'd like to hit military targets. And then they've now taken out as much as 20% of the refining capacity in Russia as well. So the war for the Ukrainians is a much better place, but a lot rests in Trump's hands and what happens in the meeting today and also in the weeks ahead.
Now, Fred, finally, help us with the economic frame on all of this as we edge closer toward winter in this hemisphere. President Trump seems to be focused on hurting Russia economically, including India's purchase of oil there. And Europe typically has been in a difficult position with energy costs around this time. How does all of that fit together in a way perhaps that investors should be aware?
So I think what to watch for from the Ukrainian side is the Russians are going after their energy. They want to make it a really cold winter, and so the Ukrainians need air defense to take out those missiles. They're going to take out their energy sources. From the Russian side, and this is new coming from President Trump, Zelensky and Trump had a very good meeting in New York, where for the first time Trump said Ukraine could and should retake territory. He hadn't really indicated that before, and also mentioned how weak the Russian economy is. The Russian economy is weak, but part of the reason it's not weaker than it is the oil sanctions have not been executed, have not been imposed, and the secondary sanctions haven't been carried out either. And so there's now some talk that the Indians would quit taking Russian deliveries to escape this 50% tariff. There's also some secondary sanctions being aimed at China as well. There's an effort to get the Europeans on board with these common sanctions from the U.S. and Europe. So I would really watch Russia striking Ukrainian economic targets and then sanctions hitting Russian economic targets, and really which of them is going to have the harder hit during the winter months ahead.